Good morning. I'm wondering what happened there. We did not get the audio background, but anyway, welcome to the program. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, thanking you for joining us January 9, 2023, Monday, here on Agenda. Thank you for being subscribers of Cignal TV and viewers of One News on channels 8 and 250, as well as on Facebook and on YouTube. Maraming salamat po. Today is a Monday, and so we start the day with what we hope will be a good daily starter. And it goes, looking presentable is a matter of self-respect. I repeat, looking presentable is a matter of self-respect. Some people have become so casual, so relaxed in how they go about, how they look, etc. Some have gone on the COVID look or the grunge look, etc. But looking presentable is a matter of self-respect. It shows how much you think of yourself, how much you care. And so let's consider the way we dress up, our hairstyle, our face, etc. And more importantly, not just the physical, but being presentable in character and in tone. Many people, they look suave, debonair, beautiful, but God, they are ugly when it comes to their attitude or what comes out of their mouth. So let us be presentable on this start of the week, not just with the looks, how we dress up, but in our speech. Okay, let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star and the headline for January 9, 2023. Okay, the front page headline is PNP probes source of destabilization memorandum. Last Saturday evening, a memorandum leaked in social media, and it was a memorandum allegedly issued by the PNP calling on all its personnel to red alert status because personnel of the AFP, Department of National Defense, allegedly had all resigned. As it turns out, that leaked memorandum was nothing more than fake, okay? Fake news, fake memorandum. And so the PNP is now investigating the matter, and many of the analysts suspect that it is related to the call of DILG Secretary Benhar Abalos and PNP Chief Adolfo Azurin to the colonels and generals to submit their courtesy resignation. Umiinit po yan at nakikisali na pati yung mga politiko. Okay. Meanwhile, at the top of the front page, thousands attend First Nazarene Walk of Faith. Instead of the traditional traslacion, the Catholic leadership, the people who are behind the traditional Feast of the Black Nazarene had launched a Walk of Faith. And as expected, thousands of people participated in the Walk of Faith, which culminated with a mass at the Quiapo Church. There you can see the image of the Black Nazarene and the devotees all thronging around it. Okay, now below that header, we have no need for SIM registration extension. It seems that somebody had asked, are we going to extend the registration for SIM registration? And the NTC said, National Telecommunications Commission said, no, because at the moment, in only 1 week, they've already registered 8% of the total multi-million SIMs in the Philippines, and they expect to complete the registration by April 2023. Okay, the only challenge that is facing this project or this program mandated by law is the registration of SIM cards in the Bangsamoro area, Bangsa Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, because of the wide territory, but also because there is a limited number of towers or cell sites, and it may be difficult for our fellow Filipinos there to register. Ayan po, dapat po talaga you have to welcome the construction of cell sites. It should not be politicized. It should not be commercialized. It should be welcomed and insisted upon by Filipinos, even our Muslim brothers. Kasi po, without cell sites, you have no communication, you have no registration. Okay. Now, let's go to the front page. Back to the front page. A bit of sad news for the day. Meralco rates likely up this month. Okay? Meralco has issued a notice that indications point to higher electricity rates for Manila Electric Company Meralco this January. Its third consecutive month of increase, okay, according to an official of the power distributor. Okay, so yan na po. And then, the pamalakaya or pambansang lakas ng kilusang mamamalakaya ng Pilipinas has demanded an end to the government's importation of fish from our neighbors in the region, because the importation has clearly affected their livelihood and will continue to punish Filipino fisher folks. Okay. And then MWSS, Metro Manila Waterworks Sewage System, or MWSS, has indicated water crisis looms in parts of Metro Manila unless the Kaliwa Dam project is started and completed by 2027. So if things don't go well for the country or for Metro Manila, we will have problems with water this year. So ngayon pa lang po, magtipid na kayo. Kasi baka umabot tayo, we might reach a point na taasan na lang ang presyo ng tubig para magtipid kayo ng tubig. And that seems to be a solution that works for Filipinos. I'm not being anti-poor, pero sa sobra po kasing mura ng tubig, binabaliwala. Okay. NAIA circuit breaker to be replaced. Okay, eto, NAIA na naman ang ginamit na title. But anyway, to avoid future hitches in air traffic management operations, the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, is scheduling a system shutdown to replace any old components during the Ninoy Aquino International Airport's daily runway maintenance closure. Okay, in other words, the CAAP is the one that has the equipment, manages, operates the equipment, and they will now undertake a rehabilitation, upgrade, maintenance, servicing of their equipments, and it will happen during the off hours of NAIA, which is usually after midnight until about 4 o'clock. So, wag po kayong mag-aalala. It will not cause any interruption, and it is done regularly. Okay. Last but not the least, once again, the United States has slammed China for interfering in the West Philippine Sea. Okay, officials of the State Department earlier expressed concern over the ongoing artificial island expansion in South China Sea. Problema. All talk, no action, wala. Ganun pa rin. Okay, let's now move on. I believe we can carry on with the program. Today is going to be very interesting for those of you who want to know more about your country, our culture, our indigenous people, and if you're into photography and sabi nga namin, picture books, okay? Because today we are going to feature an artist, a scholar, and mind you, while most people consider him as a photographer, he is actually more like a sociologist, anthropologist, and cum laude, if I'm not mistaken, from Colorado. Let's roll out the video to welcome our guest today.
Jacob Maentz is an American documentary photographer who has spent numerous years in the Philippines. He is one of the minds behind the book called Homelands, where he chronicled indigenous communities in the country. Maentz is also a project photographer with the Blue Earth Alliance, a community of professionals that uses visual storytelling to advocate for various environmental and social issues.
Okay, good morning, Jacob. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Cito. Thank you so much for having me here this morning.
Okay, I just came down from Sagada last week. And once again, I got to see a lot of the work of Ms. Pere, who did a chronicle, a photographic chronicle of the people of the mountain province. And it never gets old. You know, you see them, you always want to see them. And by coincidence, you're our guest today. And I kind of wonder, how did you get into this into a line of work, this interest? Because you could have stayed in Colorado and skied all your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I came to the Philippines back in 2003 as a Peace Corps, as a United States Peace Corps volunteer. Mm-hmm. And I served as a volunteer in Palawan for 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And I was doing a lot of environmental education at that time, and also a lot of marine surveys with the Palawan Council for Sustainable Development. They were doing some zoning, econ zoning in Palawan at the time. And I would spend months in the field doing marine surveys around Busuanga and Coron. And that was my first real interaction with some indigenous communities in the country, which were the Tagbanwa that lived throughout Coron and Busuanga there. And you know, this interaction with the Tagbanwa, they have such sort of a simple life there, fishing every day for their meals. But it was compelling in a way. And I don't know, I saw something true, something real there. So I wanted to sort of explore this more. But that was years later. So I was a volunteer for a couple of years.
You know, it's good that you shared that, because not many people know that I lived roughly about 7 to 10 years on and off in Busuanga, because I built Club Paradise, which is now Discovery Paradise. And then I also built a second resort there. And I know what you're talking about, the simple lives of the Tagbanwa. Many people I worked with said they were lazy. And I said, you know, they got it. They got life together because they fish, they eat, they sleep, they fish, they eat, they sleep, and you know, they go where nature brings them. And we go to work, go to office, and then say, oh, I wish I could spend time in the beach. We're the ones who are crazy. So I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so many communities, you know, and it's this connection to land that so many indigenous people have. So their lives are revolved around their environments because they live at such a local level. Mm-hmm. So from generation to generation, they've observed their surroundings. They've become in tune with their surroundings. They can understand when changes happen, subtle changes happen, because they pass down this traditional knowledge from generation to generation.
But
So
you took up conservation biology in Colorado. Where's the connection here? Because Colorado is way up high mountains with snow, and then you go down to the tropics in the Philippines. In the first place, what's the connection between conservation, diploma, Peace Corps, etc.? How did that all happen?
Sure. I mean, my background is in wildlife biology, conservation biology, and what I was taught in school was always from a very Western perspective. How to manage wildlife populations, how to create protected areas to save, to conserve our ecosystems, to protect biodiversity. But what was always lacking from that, now that I realize looking back on my formal education, we never really talked about the most important conservationists, which are the indigenous peoples that have lived in these ecosystems in their homelands for generations and generations. So that was always sort of left out of the conversation. But what I really wanted to tell with this book, Homelands, is that actually indigenous peoples are the best conservationists, and they need a voice at the table when we're talking about protecting areas, when we're talking about preserving ecosystems, because they really have the knowledge that we need in order to move forward as a whole society. So their wisdom, their local knowledge, their insights are extremely important and need to be part of that picture when we're talking about different conservation measures.
That's interesting, Jacob, because you're very correct there. They're excluded. They are the linchpin of what happens on the ground in far-flung places, highlands, etc. They're the center of it all, but they're excluded in terms of consultation, in terms of education. We dismiss them as illiterate. In the Philippines, they have been frowned upon or disdained because they were labeled as the burners of the forest because of kaingin, which is slash and burn. But you're now bringing a different perspective to this, that if we should be asking anyone, it should be them. And for those who may not agree with me, I don't think the kaingin indigenous person who practices kaingin does more damage than the real estate developers in the country, along with the politicians who buy up all the lands to build so-called housing. But sorry, I'm editorializing here.
No, kaingin actually was a sustainable practice that the indigenous people did for centuries. But what happened was that the majority of the forest lost in the Philippines was actually from large-scale mining back in the 70s, the 80s. So yeah,
illegal logging.
And illegal logging, yeah. So kaingin was actually sustainable because they would rotate their crops and the forest would regenerate. But now, because there's so much pressure on what remaining forest there is, the practice is not necessarily sustainable any longer. But traditionally it was. But because the forest is not mostly gone now, there's not much forest left in the country. The pressure it's that much stronger. So we need to look at it that way, I think.
Okay, now you came in as a Peace Corps volunteer. Again, a controversial point because most people say Peace Corps, CIA. Can you just explain why you joined the Peace Corps and what work you did for the Peace Corps down here in the Philippines, in Palawan in particular?
In Palawan, yeah. The Peace Corps is a United States volunteer organization. If you have a degree or have a certain skill in a particular area, you can join and you can volunteer. I think they're in some 70 countries throughout the world. So you can it's the host country that will invite the volunteers in, depending on what their needs are, whether it's health, education, sanitation, business development. So I came here right out of college, actually. I graduated in December. And in January, I was on a plane and I was already here in the Philippines.
Mhm.
So I was, for me, it was a way to sort of get out into the world and visit a new place, but also maybe make a little bit of change and put my education to use. But I think in reality, you actually learn more for yourself than you do maybe you give to a community. Although there are things that you see positive changes in relationships that you make. But you learn a lot, especially.
Yeah, you think that, hey, I got the degree, I can make a difference, I'm going to contribute. And then when you get there on the ground, okay, gentlemen, we have no nails, use your brains and let's figure this out.
Yeah, and the local knowledge, I mean, people know best, right? They've been doing and living in their area for so long. So you as an outsider coming in to say, oh, we should do things this way, it's not. So it's more of a learning and a collaboration process.
What did you learn out of Palawan, and what did you give back while you were there?
So when I was in Palawan, we started a environmental education program using photography, actually. So this was pre-digital, or just as digital was getting started. So we were able to find some donated cameras, and we would go to high schools. And we would give the students the cameras so they could go out and take photos of their environment, of their surroundings. And then we would bring the photos back and we would discuss and talk about conservation. So we used photography as a medium to educate. And we thought it was a interactive way to do that.
Okay, and what came out of that project or that undertaking? Did you come up with an exhibit, or did some of the kids eventually become photographers like yourself?
We did. We had an exhibit, a local exhibit, which was great. We put the photos up and we captioned them. So it was well received. I'm still in touch with a few students from that project. No one has gone into photography that I know of. But just seeing that interaction during that time, I think it was a successful way to educate. I mean, it's different now. Everyone has a phone in their pocket, right?
Yeah.
But at that time, photography was still inaccessible to a lot of people. So I think it was a nice thing that we were trying to do.
Well, good for you. You didn't get killed. Remember back in the day when photographers would get killed because indigenous people thought, oh, if you take a photo of me, you're capturing my soul.
Yeah, I mean, that still likely persists, it happens in a lot of areas. So for this project, we were very careful about how we went into communities. We always got permission, of course. Some communities didn't want us to go in. They had bad experiences in the past. So we were very concerned about how we went into a community and gaining the right permission, usually from the elders of the community. And every area that we went to was actually very, very different in how we gain that permission. So sometimes it was the whole community that was gathered, and they would have a community meeting, and they would tell the community why I'm here, what I'm trying to do, and they would talk about it, and they would see if it was something that they wanted or not. And other times we would need to get approval from the NCIP, which is the National Commission for Indigenous Peoples. Other times it would be just the leader of the community, the Datu, and he would give us permission.
Okay, so what's in it for you, Jacob, if you don't mind my being blunt? What's in it for you? Because in this generation, or in this age, digital age, where photographers, quote unquote, are a dime a dozen, and then people don't read books anymore, and coffee table books are more like dust collectors. One wonders what drives you to carry on doing what you do, like putting together that book, The Homelands.
Yeah, Homelands came about throughout the course of the project, and we actually spent roughly 3 years producing it. And I wanted to do a book because I feel like a book is a great medium to showcase photography. Yes, and like you said, Cito, we are so digitalized now as a society. We always see photos on our phone, on our gadgets, but to see photos printed on paper and the physicality of that, and to be able to flip the pages, there's something really empowering about that and something really emotional about that. For instance, the paper that we used, it's a rough texture. So when you're flipping through the landscapes of the book, it sort of somehow brings you into that landscape. So seeing photos printed physically, it changes how you feel about them, and it changes how you view them. So we wanted to do something in book form because for these reasons. So not only that, but we ended up putting together 18 different essays in the book. Originally, it was just going to be an essay or two sort of describing the project, how everything came about. But when COVID happened and the pandemic started, we actually slowed down. And my writer and I, Nicola Sebastian, who's an amazing writer, we slowed down and we ended up doing more than 100 hours of interviews. And we interviewed indigenous leaders. We interviewed people from the academe, indigenous activists, students. And with this dialogue and these interviews that we did, we were able to put together these essays. And so it allowed us to
What was the direction or point of the interviews or the dialogues? Because is it just for them to be able to tell their story, or is it about a particular subject matter? What was the intention?
Right. We wanted to create a space for the indigenous voices to really be heard. So it was for their stories to be told. It was also to gain more insight into the most important topics that they're dealing with or they're facing.
Like what?
So this book revolves around land. So for most indigenous communities, not only in the Philippines but around the world, it's land is always the big issue. They're being displaced from their homelands by whether it's large scale projects, whether it's paramilitary groups that are there for different reasons. So there's conflict, but generally it comes down to these communities being displaced from their lands, and that's always the big issue, because everything for these communities is derived from the land. Their culture, their languages are derived from the land, their spirituality. So if you take away their land, you're basically taking away everything from these communities. And so the land is the biggest issue, which we tried to highlight in this book, Homelands.
Okay, what about the onset of modernization, of education, etc., in contrast or in conflict with their tribal values?
Well, culture should be changing, right? If culture was static, then it would disappear. But culture should always be evolving. Languages evolve. So this is actually really important that things change. And it's not really for us to say, but the community should be in a place where they can say, this is how we want to move forward, whether we want to adopt certain modern things or not. But it should always come from within the community, and they should be able to decide what they want to do. It shouldn't be forced upon them.
Okay. Aside from land, what other key issues or concerns or views were shared in the book?
So we have an essay on mother tongue education, which we dive pretty deep into that conversation. Yeah. We have some historical essays as well. So we talk about Dean Worcester, who was the Secretary of the Interior during the American colonial period. Yeah. He was also an avid photographer, and he did a lot of work with indigenous communities in Luzon. But he actually, the way that he photographed was a way to tell the American people or show the American people why the Philippines needed to be colonized. So the images were always showing indigenous peoples in poverty and showing them in relation to their colonizers. So it was a very different way that he used photos to show. It was why.
Propaganda.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. And the publications that published these were National Geographic, and this is how people in the U.S. got their information back in those times.
Yeah, I remember coming across a book, The Islands and Our People, which was done, the photography and writing done by an American author, and it was shocking because everyone, that's where many Americans got the notion that Filipinos lived up in trees.
Yeah, that's exactly, and that's what they wanted to portray, because that rationalized why the American government was here and could sell this to the American people, essentially.
Yeah, but how does Homeland change all that, or how does the work of Jacob Maentz modernize that narrative or change that misimpression?
Well, I think this book is not really to say this is how things should be. We really just want it to be a starting point as a conversation. So I hope this book will bring awareness to what the important issues are, and the photographs themselves. I hope people will have some sort of emotional connection to them. And then the essays sort of give a way to dive in deeper and really learn and give context to these issues. So we hope it's a starting point. We hope it's a conversation piece people can learn from. The writing was so well done. We dove into some of these really important topics, but it's written in a way that's very easy to read and understand. So that was important.
Your associate, Nicolas Sebastian, is he Filipino or?
She's Filipino. She's based in La Union currently.
Okay. Well, I just needed to, because it sounded very, very South American. I gotta ask this question: is it a guy? Is it a girl?
She's a National Geographic explorer. She has her master's in creative writing from Columbia. She's amazing, and we actually had an amazing team. I had a graphic designer from the Netherlands. We had a consultant, an anthropologist consultant from UP, Nian Sapalo. We had some other writers, Gabi Melvar. We had a production manager, Sari Gloria, who did an amazing job, and she's done many books in her past. So we really had an amazing team to put this together.
Okay. Jacob, let's go for a quick break. And when we return, let's get deeper into this book, the contents, and of course, your other works here on Agenda. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and joining us or still with us is Jacob Maentz, accomplished photographer, a member of, I gotta figure this out. What exactly is this Blue Earth Alliance? Jacob, I know about Blue Water or resort. I know anyway, I don't want to go somewhere else right now. But what is this Blue Earth Alliance, and how did you get into it?
So Blue Earth Alliance, it's actually an NGO based in the United States. And it's just an alliance of like-minded photographers, videographers, working on social issues, environmental issues. So it's a support network where we can share ideas, collaborate, and it also offers fiscal sponsorship. So we can get donations for our individual projects in a tax-free way, essentially. Okay.
And what is the life? What is your life like, or what is your work like professionally? I mean, in terms of, bringing home the bacon, as they say in the States, because is it relatively easy to get funding, or do you have to scrounge around and beg for several years before you can do a project like Homelands?
Yeah, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work, a lot of persistence, a lot of dedication to really want to do something. The visual arts, photography in particular, there's not a lot of funding for these activities. There are some, but generally the grants are very competitive. And so for this project, it was easier to reach out to individual sponsors that had an interest in culture, Philippine culture. So that was the route that we went. But this project itself, most of it was personally funded. We did have some sponsorships, but it was almost a decade long in the making. So when I had some extra funds on the side, I would take a trip and visit a community. So that's sort of how this project came about. It's difficult to find funding, but there are opportunities that are out there as well.
So you're just a bit better than a musician, or maybe musicians do better than you do.
Maybe that could be. Yeah.
In any case, okay. So you mentioned that when there were funds, you would visit a community. So a project like this book, The Homelands, it's not something that, okay, hey guys, we got the money, we got the team, let's go, let's do it. So it doesn't happen that way. You just kind of piecemeal everything over a period of time. How long did it take?
So the actual work in the book, it's about 10 years of working with different communities around the country. All the way from Sulu to the Batanes. We really spent a lot of time visiting communities. But the book itself, it took us about 2.5 years to produce. And a lot of that was, again, the interviews we did, the writing, working on the design. So all in all, it was, roughly 12 years from the time this project started until Homelands was put out late last year.
Okay, now, how do you support yourself, my friend? Because, if you were on Facebook, you would have possible, if you have 10,000 followers, you've had advertising. But there is no advertising in a printed book.
Right. And actually, this book, it's a not-for-profit book. So once the book breaks even, all of the profit is going to be going towards indigenous youth scholarships. We really wanted to give back. And so that was really important that we went this route, that it be a not-for-profit book. So it will break even eventually, we hope. And then, we're going to figure out ways to support youth, particularly indigenous youth, that are interested in also visual or some kind of storytelling. Because I believe that these stories, I'm telling these stories from an outsider, as an outsider. Yeah. And of course, there are biases there. I can't deny that. So what I think is most important is for these communities, for youth to tell their own stories and have a platform to do that. So that's really what we hope this book will eventually become. Maybe things will open up. We don't know. but it's my hope that we can support these indigenous youth for them to be able to tell their own stories.
Okay, you mentioned that after the book breaks even, everything else that is sold will go to scholarships. Wouldn't it be easier for you to just find sponsors for scholars? Because, I mean, must be a challenge selling books nowadays. I don't even want to get into that world, but how has it been for you?
Yeah, I decided to self-publish the book. So which was a good decision. I looked at different publishers, but in the end, I wanted complete creative control over what we were doing, and this allowed for that. So I was able to put my own team together to accomplish that. But now with book distribution, shipping, and all of these things, I'm also dealing with all of that. So it's a learning process for me. But again, I think having a good team and surrounding yourself with good people, it makes it easier. But there's certainly a learning curve there.
Okay, now you are based in Cebu temporarily, or are you residing in the Philippines as a permanent resident? What's the story there?
Yeah, so I've been based in Cebu since 2006. So this is really home now for me. And a lot of my work, aside from this project, which is Project Kachatubong Filipino, is what we've called it. I do other photography work. So I do travel. I do other documentary travel work for NGOs, for some companies. So I do commissioned work as well. So that's sort of how I bring the bacon home, is through these commissioned works that I do.
Yeah, you've done work with Geographical Magazine, UK, BBC Travel, Discovery Channel Magazine, Geo, Lonely Planet, The Guardian, Destin Asia, National Geographic Traveler, World Food Program, UNESCO, etc. So you're clearly in demand. What is life like for you? I overheard you talking with our executive producer, Gabriel, and you said that after this interview tomorrow, you're off somewhere for a month or something. What's life like for you in terms of travel?
The pandemic really slowed things down. So a lot of work actually disappeared. But it's just now starting to slowly come back, which is great, because I know a lot of photographers here in the Philippines. We've been hit hard, like so many people have. So it's good that it's starting to come back. Tomorrow I'm off, for a month trip. I do these trips with with an organization called YPO, which is the Young Presidents Organization.
Yeah.
I document some of their members' trips. So that's actually where I'm heading tomorrow for a month to document some of their travels. So yeah, the work is quite varied, and you sort of need to take what comes to make a living. But on the side, I think it's important to always have a personal project that you're working on, work that means something to you, because that's ultimately what's going to carry. As a photographer, your career forward. It's not the it's not the commission work. It's really the personal work that you do that ultimately brings your.
It's either the vocation that you have or the artistry that comes out in that personal work, and not on the commissioned work. But how do you separate your emotion, mindset, biases, as you said earlier, from the work? Because I used to do photography for the newspapers, and I once wanted to do an exhibit portraying all the poverty in Metro Manila, and then I realized, that's just going to turn off so many people. It's not really going to properly address the problem, so I gave it up. But how do you decide treatment of subject matter?
I mean, for me, it's really important to listen. So when I go into the communities, I'm not shooting right away. I'm listening. I'm learning. I'm being curious. That's really what drives me forward, is this curiosity to learn and want to learn more about how things are, how things work. So I think really by really listening to people, engaging, having important conversations, you can understand better what it is that these communities or whatever it is that you're photographing, how they need to be shown. So there's always going to be biases, but you need to just, I guess, recognize that and understand that there are, and try to move forward with that head on. So yeah, I think reading a lot, understanding the issues that you're trying to photograph is extremely important. Actually, some of the most successful photographers in the world, they weren't trained in photography. They were trained in whatever specific area that they're photographing, whether it be anthropology, architecture, because that way they understand the intricacies of the subject matter that they're photographing, so they can approach it in a different way.
Okay, now who has influenced your work? Because when you mentioned photography and architecture, the first thing that comes to mind is Ansel Adams. When you tell me about indigenous people in the Philippines, it's Mas Ferre and also Kip Moore, who I knew personally for many years. What about you? Who really influenced you, or was there someone that honed you?
There are some individuals that have influenced me throughout my career, but what got me into photography initially actually was back in university, back in Colorado. There was a National Geographic magazine that came out, and the whole issue was dedicated to biodiversity. And for me to see that, because I was studying conservation at the time, for me to see that a magazine could come out with beautiful images talking about biodiversity, which wasn't extremely talked about at the time, it was inspiring to me that, this work, there was a path to do this kind of work out there. And so that was, I guess, maybe the spark that made me realize that this is possible, that it is possible to have a career in visual storytelling. But individually, yeah, there's like Steve McCurry. He's a legend. He's influenced my work a lot. There are local photographers here. I mean, there are so many amazing photographers within the Philippines. It's just a lot of people don't get the recognition that's really that's deserved. So
okay, we'll go for a quick break again, just like a very short one. But I want to ask you about a particular photo that they showed. It's that photo of that young Muslim girl that you centered on, and you essentially blurred the background. I have a question to you about that, but we'll go for a quick break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the program agenda, and we continue our interview and feature of Jacob Maentz and his book Homelands. Okay, Jacob, I like that photo you did of the young Muslim girl in prayer, and I need to ask you if Gab, if you could please put it up if it's there. I need to ask you, Jacob, that photograph. This one? Is that a takeoff from some Dutch artist? I just kind of think of Johannes Vermeer, or that photo that was very popular in National Geographic of that Afghan girl. How did you come about with this photograph?
So we are actually in the capital in Tawi-Tawi, Bongao, and we were doing a documentary there. We were there for a week shooting a documentary about the culture and the life of people in Tawi-Tawi. So a part of that was discussing Islam and religion. So we were permitted to go to a Friday prayer at the mosque,
yeah.
At the local mosque.
Mm-hmm.
And not enter the area where the women pray, but we were able to stay on the outside. So this is actually shot through the window panes that fold up and down. So this is shot with a longer lens through the window pane of the women praying that day. So that's how it was taken.
Okay, so but how do you avoid, it's like being over influenced by established work? Like I was saying, there are people who I'm not referring to you, okay? But there are people who almost do copycat work because they're so impressed. How do you avoid that? It's like, okay, hey, maybe this is too much like so-and-so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough one because you want to be inspired by other people's work, and it's important to look at other imagery to become visually literate. Mm-hmm. But you don't want to copy either. So I don't know. I think you just need to sort of figure out what it is that you do and your approach to how you take images that's different. And whether it's within the work, whether it's niche work, or whether it's an approach, an aesthetic approach to how you photograph. But yeah, I mean, I think subconsciously maybe we are all copying each other in some way, right? Because we've seen thousands, hundreds of thousands of images in our life, and those obviously make some kind of impression on us. And we take things that we like from those, or things that we don't like.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that you live in Cebu, that it is home at the moment, or at least you're a permanent resident there. Are you clearly married local?
Yeah, I'm married here. We have 2 wonderful teenage children right now. So yeah, this is home for the meantime. I'm not sure if eventually we'll wander off somewhere else or not, but this is a good place to be.
It just occurred to me, Jacob, you're doing work with indigenous cultures as a photographer, bookmaker, etc., author. Did it ever occur to you that you are now a minority in the Philippines? And because I'm married to a foreigner. Okay. She is from the Netherlands, and that's why the association with the Dutch artist. But will you ever do a work featuring the foreigners in the Philippines? Because I think that would be an interesting topic, and the narratives that you people could share.
Yep. No, I thought about that, maybe 5 years ago. I thought what a neat visual story it would be to photograph different foreigners and the work that they're doing here, or the relationships that they're in. I think because I've met some amazing people doing work here, but I've also met the whole spectrum of people living and working here. So that would be actually a really interesting idea to put together visually. To show.
How has it been for you? Because I know of people who live in Smoky Mountains. I know of people who live in ordinary neighborhoods. They used to live in Switzerland or lived in America, and they're now living ordinary Filipino lives and loving it. But how has it been for you?
It's been good mostly. I mean, I won't lie. There are challenges that that I face not only every day, but when photographing here.
Mm-hmm.
There are positive and negative aspects of being a foreigner photographing here. Sometimes it makes things much easier to get access and to get inside of a community. But other times it's more challenging because people are also really interested in you, and it takes away from sort of those candid moments that you're trying to capture.
Okay.
So you
become the news, not the news gatherer, as we say in media. Well, anyway, we're down to a minute, but where can people get the book? How can people get the book, and what's it going to cost, my friend?
Yeah, so you can check out homelands.ph. That's homelands with an S. And you can order a copy there. There's an essay there that tells you a little bit more about how this book came about. So you can learn more there. There are some bookstores that we're trying to get this into in Manila. Artbooks.ph is one. And we're probably going to be having a launching sometime in March in Manila. We've had one here in Cebu and in Baguio, but we're trying to reach out. Hopefully we'll get to Davao as well. So yeah, that's the easiest place to learn more would be on homelands.ph.
Well, I'm sure your friend June Ventura will be able to help you a lot, because he's the one that mentioned to me about your great book, and he really made sure that you got on the program.
Yeah, June is great. We've done a lot of projects together. He's an amazing publisher, and the books that he puts out are wonderful. So it's great that June was able to talk with you and have you let me join on the program today. So
okay, I'll give you a shout out, a chance to give a shout out to our viewers. Go ahead, Jacob.
Yeah, thank you for letting me be here today, and I hope that you'll check out the homelands.ph, where you can learn more about the book that we've done. It's a photography book. It's a large book, and it's got 18 essays in there. And it really is a labor of love that we put together. So we hope that you'll support this work and support the indigenous peoples that we will be supporting as sales go on. So
okay.
Yeah.
Remember, ladies and gentlemen, after the book goes break even, all proceeds that are profit will go to a scholarship fund for indigenous youth. Okay, Jacob, thank you very much for joining us this morning. It was a pleasure. God bless you and have a good year.
Thank you, Cito. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Okay, that's Jacob Maentz, and now let's go for our blessing this week. This week we are observing our prayer and fasting at Every Nation Church and also at the Christ Commission Church, and we do hope that all our viewers will join us in this week of prayer and carry on. Our blessing for today, I pray that God visits your home today with healing, blessings, and miracles. That is what the theme of our prayer and fasting this week will be: miracles, to honor the name of God. And we do hope that miracles happen in your lives this week, this year. God bless you. Keep it here on One News. Thank you. I'm Cito Beltran.